The European Union has announced plans to ban all imports of Russian oil by the end of the year. It's part of a sixth package of sanctions by the EU in response to the war in Ukraine. The sanctions are yet to be formally approved by member states, but countries which are reliant on Russian oil could vote against it. In her announcement of the sanctions, the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said that the EU simply has to do it.
Today, we are addressing our dependency on Russian oil. And let's be clear, it will not be easy, because some member states are strongly dependent on Russian oil, but we simply have to do it. We will make sure that we phase out Russian oil in an orderly fashion, so in a way that allows us and our partners to secure alternative supply routes and at the same time be very careful that we minimize the impact on the global market. And this is why we will phase out Russian supply of crude oil within 6 months and refined products by the end of the year.
Well, let's get analysis on this from our business presenter, Ian King. 6 months, the end of the year, not fast enough for Ukraine, but it is going to mean moving very, very quickly for lots of different countries in Europe.
Yes, that's right, Jane. And the reason that they've put in these targets at the end of the year is really to give countries more time in order to prepare themselves for being weaned off Russian oil exports and refined products such as kerosene and diesel. You mentioned that this has to be voted through unanimously by the European Parliament and by every EU member. Well, Slovakia and Hungary have particular concerns because of their high dependence on Russian crude. And I understand that the draft documents put forward by the EU would give Slovakia and Hungary until the end of next year in order to get themselves off Russian crude. So they would have slightly more time. But make no mistake, this is a very, very big measure indeed, should it come to pass. We talk a lot, Jane, about the importance of Russian gas to EU countries. Well, actually, they buy much more oil from Russia than they do gas. Russia's overall crude exports last year, or expected to be this year on current levels, around 180 billion US dollars. So a very, very significant sum of money indeed. The West buys some 70% of that and the EU a big chunk of it. In all, the EU relies on Russia for around 25% of its crude imports. So this is why it is such a big deal. It would deprive the Kremlin of a lot of money. The other reason I think that the EU is staggering this measure and not bringing it in straight away is because they don't want to push up the oil price suddenly, which would inadvertently, potentially, make even more money for Vladimir Putin. So that's why I think there is going to be this phased approach. It's part of a number of other measures that have been introduced by the EU today. They've also announced that Sberbank, which is Russia's biggest bank, is being kicked off the SWIFT system, which is a communications messaging system that helps facilitate cross-border money transfers around the world. And it's also banning 3 Russian broadcasters from the EU's airways. They've also, incidentally, as part of this package, named several individuals who they think are responsible for the massacre in Bucha recently. And that is something that Ursula von der Leyen stated in her address to the European Parliament earlier this morning. But as I say, it is this measure on oil that is the real showstopper. A lot of people will be sceptical as to whether this will work. They will say, well, hang on, won't Russia just sell more crude to other countries at a knockdown price? And indeed, we do know that they've been doing that with recent oil embargoes from the UK and the United States. There has been some evidence of Russia trying to sell its oil cheaply to China and India, for example. But they have a problem in doing that. For a start, as I said earlier on, most of their crude exports currently go to the West. So there would be a challenge in getting it across to buyers in the East. There is one pipeline that runs from Russia to China for oil, but so that would effectively mean that those exports would have to be done by seaborne methods, in other words, by big oil tankers. And there's a question there whether the carriers, the owners, the shipping companies, the tanker owners would necessarily want to do that. They'd be risking, for example, being punished for sanctions busting by some counts. They also would find their insurance premiums very, very high because a lot of those crude exports would have to go via Black Sea ports. And we've seen, for example, how effective the Ukrainians have been at attacking the Russian Navy. So there'll be challenges there as well. But overall, it's a big, big measure.
Ian, thanks very much.